Siam Nostalgia, good evening. This is the Children of the Setting Sun Productions Friends and Relatives podcast. We're coming to you from the Lummi Nation, where today we're going to spend some time with our Chairman Jeremiah Julius, leader of the Lummi Nation and member of the Lummi Indian Business Council. And first off, Mr. Chairman, if you could share with our community and our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are and where you come from.
Jeremiah Julius, traditional names Slailton and Watatlam. My grandpa and grandma on my mom's side were Vernon Lane and Nancy Solomon Lane, and my mother's Doreen Lane. On my father's side, Haynes Julius and Vila Jefferson, and my father was Michael Julius. I'm a father of three, married, and avid fisherman, and love serving my people.
Well, that's really great. And you got elected as the chairman about 30 days ago. Voted in by your peers on the council to lead the Lummi Nation. What's it been like in these first 30 days? Maybe give us a quick overview of that experience.
Drinking water from a fire hose. That's, man, I've hit the ground running with the team, formed the team, and yeah, it's been fun. It's been hectic. It's been eye-opening and fulfilling. And I'm excited for the next year. And 30 days have gone by, and the council has done some great things in 30 days. And we'll continue to do great things and establish and rebuild relationships on the outside and within. And our goal is to do this together as a council, as a whole, with the team. And the most important part of our team is the community and the people.
So with that said, you have, you have vision, and maybe you can articulate that a little bit for what you see in this first 100 days of your administration. There's probably some things that you absolutely want to get in place in terms of whether it be team building or messages to the community or relationships with people within the community or on the council or within the greater community. There's probably some absolutes there that despite all of the things that are coming at you, there's some things that you want to get in place as soon as possible and as firmly as possible.
Well, the first day we made it clear to council, we had a meeting right away and just really made it clear that we're doing this together. Everything from this day forward is together. It's not me, it's not one individual or a couple, it's all of us together, and really set the stage for what we hope and will see moving forward. We've seen it in the first 30 days. It's just creating this comfort of everything we do is in line with who we are and our policies and what we stand for, our principal values, and we hear the community. We communicate with the community as individuals, but how do we really get them feeling that community involvement, which has been a challenge maybe in your leadership too, and I think it's a challenge since the beginning of leadership, and for us that's important. I'm not saying we're going to conquer it and completely figure it out, but we are going to do our best, because that is one of our top priorities, is really doing this together as a council first and foremost, and we can't do it without the community behind us. Lummi has always been successful, strong, principal values always shine in our leadership in the past and today. And even through dysfunction, we're strong and powerful and celebrate many victories. But together, all of us together, including community, including the children, we're even stronger. And that's what we hope to see. And I believe we will see this. And I'm really looking forward to it. The next 90 days, really collapsing time frames and setting the stage. And one thing we did right away the first week is we held a retreat and identified priorities for the nation based on last year's priorities and the year before and the year before. And if you look at the community's priorities and you look at the issues at hand, and really addressing those, and we identified the top priorities. Obviously, sovereignty, treaty rights are big, important. Community development is important, and under that, sovereignty and treaty rights, health is really big. And last year it was big, and the year before it was big and important and heavily funded. Health is critical and a top priority, which falls under treaty rights, sovereignty, and then economic development is a top priority. Diversifying our economy, thinking post gaming, not just thinking about gaming, but us as a sovereign nation and the ability to tax for outside sovereign governments, state, federal government, and really looking at our inability to tax because of dual taxation and issues that have been here in your leadership, in Grandpa's leadership, and all those of the past, and it's still an issue today. And in order for us to really diversify our economy and fully fund the needs that are before our people, because there's still a lot of unmet needs, a massive amount. And come budget time, it's always challenging for council, and there's really a rude awakening for newly elected, including myself 6 years ago. There's this perception that there's this astronomical amount, but when you really get down to the details of budget time like we're in right now, you really see the unmet needs and trying to conquer drug addiction and health, and it's all behavioral health and schools and education and scholarships, and the list goes on and on and on, and the lack of funding for all of this, and then the fights. There's always threats to our sovereignty, to our treaty rights, to our future generations, to the water, to the environment, and so really the holding that retreat the first week, getting our roles and responsibilities down and coming together as one, as a council, and moving forward together, really, and everybody having a purpose and roles and an idea of where we're going.
No, that's very well that was held, that retreat right off the bat. So thinking about that and thinking about these things that were stated as priorities, you're never really prepared for this job, in that you really don't understand what that job entails until you sit in it, in that chair, and assume that responsibility. But at the same time, in some ways, you've been preparing yourself your whole life. And in your view, what is that? How did you become prepared for this moment in your own personal life and in the history of the Lummi people? There's a certain kind of ascendancy that occurs within our community for leadership to step forward and say, yes, I'll take that responsibility. Where did that come from?
Oh, man. It's impossible to fill the shoes of past leaders. But growing up with past leaders, growing up on the water, having that connection to the importance of what defines us, who we are, started at a young age for me. my father was a fisherman, and my childhood memories, he passed away when I was 7, but my memories of my father are on the water. My memories of my father are even sitting on his couch together, learning how to write, and of all things, reading the Bible. And I think preparation for this position, there's no one right way, and there's no time. There's no master's and a PhD in leadership that could ever prepare you for Lummi Nation as a leader, and you know this well, and past leaders know this very well. It's a calling, and for me, Grandpa had his wishes for myself that I took seriously, and preparation is, I think, for me, I think we learn things, and I think our grandparents and our parents prepare us, whether we know it or not, at a young age. And I started when I was young with my son. Little things that Grandpa used to do with me, and Randy Kinley and Uncle Sonny and many others played a role in where I'm at today. A lot of people. And hunting, getting up way before daylight, going out and hunting, and then that process, and bringing those ducks in, and that 1 mile hike through mud and water and freezing cold, and then the process bringing them home, and Grandma Nancy plucking them and burning them, and you helping out, and then delivery to the elders, delivery to the smokehouse. There's so many things that prepare a young Lummi child into leadership, and there's many out there who are being groomed and prepared right now that are sitting in front of us and at the school, and for myself, what was important for me was self-education. Education was important. I was a student at the college, Northwest Indian College, in '94. But what was most important for me was self-education, reading books, constantly reading books, asking Grandpa and Auntie Laverne and yourself and many others what books to read. Going ahead and reading books, important books on business and what's trending and what does the future look like. Don't think about just now. When our nation is looking to diversify in our economy and in business, you can't chase waves. You got to put together a team to be able to surf and be ahead of that wave and be trendsetters and forward think about what does 50 years look like right now. So when we're making investments today, we should be thinking. So there was a lot of different types of preparation, but what most for me was being Lummi, being a fisherman. What does the water mean? How does that connect Grandpa and me? How does that connect myself and my son and my daughter? Those were the most important teachings for me, and the importance of sitting at that table as a young child and treaty, hearing Grandpa and those old ones. And I don't even remember all those people that used to come and eat breakfast on Saturdays and Sundays before church, but there was always that dropping in, and Auntie Violet, and and they were always talking about us and our kids and the importance of the work that they're doing today for tomorrow. So a lot of there's no one way to prepare, but for me, that is really critical for me is the connection to who we are, understanding what our homeland is, and what the homeland means to us today outside of the reservation and ceded territory, and the importance of partnerships with federal government versus the past paternalistic behavior and attitude that was pushed on us. It still happens today, but our ability to communicate and no longer be on the menu. We're at the table on a government-to-government level. For me, is fulfilling, and I think the past leaders are happy because they set this in place, and we're where we are today at the table on a government-to-government level. most of the time, and not just on the menu like we were in the past.
That's a great foundation, and you think about that, about being at the table. Uncle Sam and my mother, late mother Violet, we closed the ferry dock down because they wanted a place at the table.
Yeah.
Larry Kinley went to the table in Washington D.C. and told the federal government, we can do it better. And that's where self-governance came from. You know, so that's very true. That the foundation for leadership is there, and it's a good one. It's a strong one. It's deep. So with that said, then, and you did a good job of laying out the priorities. What is it that we have in front of us today? That we have our priorities of economic development, community development, and health, and of course treaty and rights, and above all sovereignty. But then you also have these kind of like hot button issues that just come right at you. Are there 2 or 3 that you want to share with the community that you guys are working on, like right now, because they're right in front of your face? You walk in the door and they have to be addressed, whether it's legislation, or I know probably you couldn't really speak in depth about any kind of legal issues, but there are things that the nation faces today that we have to address. Some are ongoing, but some are just kind of surfacing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's there's a lot more than 3 that are critically important in threats to our nation, sovereignty, treaty rights, and children in the system. And some of us, myself, like I said, I lost my father when I was 7. Therefore, I spent a lot of time with different father figures, uncles, and I really love them and appreciate them for that. But a lot of them don't have that today, and a lot of them get caught in a system. And that's important. That's a major that's a major issue before us right now, because a child growing up, we have this sense of belonging, and we belong to Lummi Nation. We and when you're taken away, we belong to our family. Your son belongs to you. There's a connection, that mother-son connection, that father-son connection, that sense of belonging. And so I won't go deeply into that, but that's a major. And in terms of sovereignty and treaty rights, you read the papers. You've got the breakage of a net pen, where the state grows and breeds invasive species in your waters, in my waters, and unborn children's waters that we felt so important at the time of the treaty. Things like that taking place, the pollution that's taken on, which got us to where we are today. Very little salmon. Salmon are so important to us. You've got culverts. That's a really, really big deal. And and if we don't know much about it, we've got Google culverts in Washington State in the case, and the threats that are before us right now as a nation as a whole, and the potential compromise of past cases, and how we're seriously at risk, and Supreme Court potential. That's important. Hearst, water rights. We're senior water right holders, without a doubt. We're a sovereign nation, and some outside entities have a hard time with that, and always have. And both of those are really, really big issues at our plate right now. And for many reasons, they're important to us. But really, if you look at one of the top 3 most important things, there is salmon. And many can't really fathom or empathize with us, and as far as the importance of salmon and what the past elders and current elders will say today. To us, salmon is culture, and culture is salmon. It's such an important connection and an important part of life for us. But on those topics, for me, how do you pivot from the perception of and the mistruths and the misleading that is going to be painted in the next few days, in the next month, in the next year? From your perspective, from my perspective, from the perspective of a Lummi, how do we get the message out to the outside communities who really don't understand who we are, and it's not their fault, but how do we deliver the message in a way, and that's important, and that's a big challenge. How do we make it so it's not so much about us? Because if they have to choose between, there's going to be an attempt to make it us versus them. And that's the way it's been done in history. And we've dealt with that. And we've survived. And we've fought. And we've had many victories. Many victories. And like you said last year, one of our greatest strengths and one of the most proud moments we will celebrate and cherish until we die is we don't pick fights. We don't want to have to fight. But when we do fight, it's necessary to fight. And what's great about this, and I'll quote you, is we fight the fight and we never give up. We fight good fights. And we don't just fight to fight. We don't go out and pick fights. No, we're protecting. When you look at what we're fighting for, we are always protecting. And you look at development that's going on. Well, we're trying to protect archaeological sites and fish passages and fish-bearing streams, and there's a perception painted that, we're just in the way of development. But really, look at where, try to change that delivery and that message to the outside communities that we've got to look at where we're at today. Mm-hmm. We've got to stop pretending we're naive and really take a hard look at where we're at. And the only way to take a look at where we're at and understand where we're at is we have to look at what it was yesterday, beyond yesterday. Because where we're at today, there's a perception that we live in this beautiful place, surrounded by beautiful water. But if you could talk to the killer whales, guess what? They're skinny, they're starving. If you can talk to the crab, if you can talk to the salmon, if you can talk to the octopus, if you can talk to all these things that have to listen to the noisy tankers coming thousands and thousands and thousands a week, coming in every day, this disruption, the fact that they can't pass a culvert, the fact that they can't get up a stream, the fact that a river was blocked off and dammed off and no longer exists, and all these things. You take a look at where we're at today, but it's so important to see where we were yesterday to get it and maybe feel what we feel when we fight these necessary fights that are going to impact future generations. And delivering that message is a challenge, but I think we're on the right track to, we just successfully had a victory with Wichita in May 9th, 2016. And that was a tough, long fight. But it gave us an opportunity. The good that I see in that battle was for a couple of years, we were able to educate not just statewide, but nationally who we are as a people, and the importance of protecting and drawing the line, saying Quilhoit, and we got to change our direction for future generations if we can't do it for ourselves.
That's true. That sharing of who we are and where we come from at the outside was so important. Now, the final words that we're looking for now is for our people. If you have any words of encouragement to our people and especially our youth in this season that we're in, the winter season, those things we do as a winter people. Plus we have, the holidays and folks following those traditions. and the important work of the council into the coming year. What are those words of encouragement to the general council or annual general council meetings coming up, where we get together and review the past year and bring up our history and make plans for the future? So, in closing, what is that? What is that that you want to say to our people?
Man, we together do so much. We do great things. We hold ceremonies. When we come together as families, it's a feeling that cannot be replaced. It cannot be beaten by any other feeling, because that feeling of family, love, that atmosphere, that's what we need in our community as a whole. And there's so much work that has to be done. There's so much celebration that has to be done. And I just encourage us to do it together. Let's fight together, not with one another. Let's celebrate together, with one another. Let's love together. I know it's challenging at times, and I really resent social media. I know it's important, and if it's used right, but at the same time, the bullying that can't be taken back, and the words that are put on social media that can't be taken back. I just hope that I encourage all of us to think about it before we do things and say things that hurt people, because no matter how old you are, it still hurts. And I don't have social media, but I hear a lot about it, and hear a lot of things. And even with my kids, I witness a lot of pain, not necessarily from here, but outside communities and school and things like that. But I just encourage us to be courageous together, because when we're courageous, when you were courageous, when you guys set your 90-day blitz and you were courageous, that encouraged us young people to be where we are today. And our courage today as a community is going to give the youth that's encouragement, not by telling anything, but when we do these things together, and we're courageous when we do it, we're setting an example, and encouraging the youth, and what they witness us doing, that's what they're going to do in the future. Hey, this is how our leadership did it with our community, and this is how our community did it with our leadership. It was done with courage. It was done with love. We celebrated together. We fought, not with one another, but together. And that's important. That's important for this leadership. All 11 of us elected today is. We need that support. We need that rock to stand behind us to fight these hard-fought battles, because and we need to do a better job of communicating to the people on what's going on out there, and we're going to work on that. And no disrespect to your leadership in the past or last year's or 50 years ago, but like I mentioned in the beginning of this, it's a challenge. And but more than anything, we need the community behind us and doing this together while we're at the front lines, because we're in the front lines of many battles for future generations, for many, not just sovereignty and treaty rights, but many different things. And that's what I would encourage us in our community, is to do this together.
LCM, Aishka, Chairman Jeremiah Julius. This is Children of the Setting Sun Productions and the Friends and Relatives podcast hour. Tonight we had the chairman of the Lummi Nation here, Jeremiah Julius, to introduce himself and those things that he and the council are going to be trying to do in the next 90 days, as well as far into the future. So, Aishka, and we stay tuned. We'll be back to you real soon. Thank you. Okay. That was good, huh?
Yeah, maybe after they leave, if you would do an intro, just one minute.